Hi everybody and welcome to episode 3 of This Week in Street, where I break down the top street photography and related stories from around the net, plus anything else interesting I find along the way. This week's show includes SmugMug and Flickr, the StreetFoto SF Street Photography Festival, plus Eric Kim being minorly annoying. There's a ton to cover, so let's get right to it, shall we? Okay, first up, Flickr gets bought by SmugMug. Like Flickr, SmugMug's also an image hosting service, but SmugMug concentrates on letting photographers easily create their own websites and portfolios. Plus they provide a suite of e-commerce tools to let photographers sell their work online. Both sites are going to run independently for now. SmugMug doesn't have any firm plans for the future of Flickr. They're currently looking at what the community wants of the site, what's missing, and they're formulating a game plan, but they are definitely moving off of Yahoo authentication as soon as possible, and that's a good thing. The deal was finalized for an undisclosed amount of money, and SmugMug's terms and conditions take effect for all Flickr users starting May 25th, 2018. Look, Flickr's been hanging on by a thread for the past few years. Its long decline is based in no small part to the neglect at the hands of Yahoo, and then being passed off to Verizon, where it's just sort of sat in limbo. There's still a thriving community on Flickr, and people are using groups to bring like-minded photographers together to discuss and show work. You have to wonder if the renaissance in street photography would have had such strong momentum if it wasn't for Flickr and wasn't for groups like Grit and Grain and Hardcore Street Photography, if it wasn't for people coming together and discussing street photography and practicing together and pushing the envelope of what the medium could do. There's a lot of reasons to be on Flickr. It just feels like it was left behind. So I guess this sale is good for street photographers and Flickr users in general, no matter how you look at it. SmugMug's been at this a long time, and it's gonna be really interesting to see where they take the site from here. You gotta wonder if it's too little too late, but only time will tell. All right, one more thing. If you don't wanna have your account transferred and be governed by the SmugMug terms of service, you have until May 25th, 2018 to delete your account and all your pictures, and you're free to go. It's up to you. I don't know, it seems to me like it's a good idea to see where this goes, but you do you. To find out more about the SmugMug acquisition of Flickr, check out the Flickr blog. The link is in the description. Up next, new Sony A7 III firmware. Wait, didn't this camera just get released like a week ago? Now Sony, you're gonna ruin your reputation for poor customer service if you keep this up. This one's just a bug fix sort of thing. It fixes the dancing pixel problem that people were having while shooting video. It addresses an issue where the touchscreen would become unresponsive at certain times, and just provides overall stability and betterness. There's no new features here. This is still Sony, it's not Fuji, but you gotta be impressed with how quickly Sony got this update out into the wild. So if you're an A7 III user, fire up your browser and grab that firmware update. Link is in the description. Oh, speaking of mirrorless cameras, according to DP Review, the reign of the DSLR is almost over. People still use DSLRs? DP Review sat down with senior executives from all the major camera manufacturers: Sony, Canon, Nikon, Olympus, Panasonic, Sigma, Tamron, Ricoh, Sony, Canon, all of them. They talked to them all. They all seem to agree on the same thing: full-frame mirrorless is the future of the photography market. Sony even went so far as to put a date on it, saying that this is going to happen within the next year. The article goes on to speculate that both Canon and Nikon will have full-frame mirrorless cameras that shoot 4K video in addition to stills before Photokina in September. When Nikon bows to the market, you know that the change has already happened. For the longest time, mirrorless cameras meant putting up with a lot of problems that made them less than ideal. The EVFs were kind of not great, battery life was abysmal, and lens selection was not exactly ideal. But over the past couple of years, companies like Fujifilm and Sony have pushed the technology to the point where none of these things are an issue anymore. For me, it's not so much that the reign of DSLRs is over as the kingdom changed when they weren't looking. Ever since Micro Four Thirds, the mirrorless market has been growing and expanding, and consumer demand for it has been growing and expanding. And the fact that Nikon, the big manufacturers, Canon and Nikon, are only responding to it now speaks more to their lack of understanding of the market than it does for anything else. But however you look at it, Canon and Nikon entering the market is going to shake things up, and that's going to be good for consumers in the end. But both companies are really late to the game. They're going to have to come up with something next gen to get the attention away from the established players. Who knows if they can do it, but you've got a few more months to find out. The DP Review article goes into a lot more detail, so it's definitely worth checking out, and the link's in the description. Yay, link, description. It's in there. All right, what's next? StreetFoto SF is coming up. The third annual StreetFoto SF Street Photography Festival is happening June 4th to 10th in San Francisco, and this year's headline workshop is being conducted by the one and only Jeff Mermelstein.
Jeff Bernstein! I freaking love Jeff Bernstein!
Apart from the chance to learn from one of my favorite street photographers, the festival includes a full week of events, lectures, photo walks, gallery shows, other festival-y things, plus a truly diverse photo contest that attracts some of the most talented street photographers from around the world. I reached out to festival organizer Ken Walton and asked him what people can expect from this year's StreetFoto SF. Here's what he had to say.
It's our third annual festival, probably going to be the biggest one ever. And what's different this year, it's an all-new lineup. We have Jeff Mermelstein coming in for a 5-day workshop. We have Burn My Eye Collective workshop with T.C. Lin and Andy Kochanowski. We have a great workshops focused on flash with 6 different members of the Full Frontal Flash Collective, a global collective of flash shooters. We've also got Ibario Nex Porello coming in and doing a 2-day workshop. It's a good lineup this year. We're pretty happy with it. Like last year, we've got a single image contest, we've got a series contest, we have a contest devoted to mobile devices, and what's brand new this year, one of the contests is dedicated just for analog shooters. So we want to see your best film work coming in. We got some exciting stuff being entered right now. We're really excited to have Jeff Mermelstein out this year. This is his first appearance at a festival. He doesn't really seem to do appearances like this outside of New York at all. So we're really glad to be bringing him out to the West Coast. It's a really rare opportunity to see him outside of his home environment. We're excited about the 5-day workshop. He's also going to be doing our keynote lecture, and he is one of the final round judges in our contest this year. So you get to see a lot of Jeff if you make it out to the festival.
I'm a huge fan of Jeff Mermelstein, and I'd love to take that workshop with him. But I also love the idea of the full frontal flash street photography workshop. Flash is probably the last form of street photography that still feels truly outlaw. There's nowhere to hide when you're shooting flash, and the results seem otherworldly and almost magical to me. Plus, the folks from Full Frontal are some of the top flash shooters in the world. This is going to be a good one. As for the contest, look, every festival has to have a contest. The StreetFoto SF Festival distinguishes itself in the way that it's set up its subcategories in its contest. It's not just single image or series. They have the mobile contest, and now this year they've got the analog contest. I'm looking forward to seeing the results on this one. The contest closes April 28th, 2018, so fire up Lightroom and pick your best shots and get them entered. You can find more info about StreetFoto SF Street Photography Festival at streetphoto.org, and that link is in the description. What else we got? Eric Kim is only minorly annoying. Let me explain. Eric Kim just released a new batch of videos, and one of them in particular caught my eye. It's called "You Are Only Minorly Annoying in Street Photography." It's a typical Eric Kim unrehearsed guerrilla style video where he sort of meanders through his own thoughts, but he brings up some interesting points. He says that street photographers are contributing to society by creating beautiful images and documenting the world. They're doing a good thing. They're part of a beautiful process. So if the cost of that is to minorly annoy someone, he's just saying acknowledge this fact. Keep a smile on your face and be positive. Eric's one of those divisive figures in the street photography world. He teaches street photography workshops to non-street photographers around the world. His website's one of the mainstays of the street photography world online. And people either love or hate him. It's no in between. Full disclosure, I would consider Eric Kim to be a friend of mine. Anytime we're in the same city together, we end up spending countless hours walking the street, shooting, talking about photography, philosophy. He's a good guy. On the surface, it might seem that Eric is condoning being pushy and doing whatever you have to do to get the shot no matter what, but I think his message is more subtle than that. It's more like you're not actually hurting anyone by photographing them. At worst, you're just minorly annoying them for an instant, and that will generally pass, so don't sweat it. But this got me to thinking about confrontation on the street. Photography is by its very nature a passive act. Photons reflect off of people and things in the world. That light is focused through a lens onto the sensor of my camera. As a photographer, I'm able to utilize that process to create images at a given point in time. That's photography. That doesn't speak anything about the creative process, but that is the mechanical means by which a photograph is created. I don't think you're affecting anyone even minorly when you photograph them. You're not assaulting them or touching them in any way, and I reject the entire notion that consent is required to make a photograph. What would have happened to Bresson's puddle jumper if he stopped to ask the guy permission first? Or Winogrand's laughing girl? These are iconic images that would be lost forever if the candidness of the moment wasn't preserved through the actions of the photographer. On a whole different level though, I think Eric has touched on something important here. We're not paparazzi trying to catch someone doing something they might regret for profit. We as street photographers are involved in a creative pursuit that's often misunderstood by the people being photographed. For some reason, some people think that you've taken something from them when you take their picture, and their demand for you to delete is a way for them to take that back from you. It's like Martin Parr said, confrontation is an occupational hazard in street photography. The idea is just be prepared. And the takeaway from Eric's video is that you're doing more good by photographing the world than the minor annoyance you might create if someone reacts negatively to being photographed. And that's a great thing to keep in the back of your mind as you're walking around and shooting. But listen, don't take my word for it. Watch the video for yourself, links in the description. All right, that's it for episode 3 of This Week in Street. Every week I'll run down the top street photography and related stories from across the net. It's not always going to be specifically street photography stories, but if it's even remotely related to street, or if it's something I think street photographers might be interested in, I'll cover it here. So if you've got an idea for a story, shoot me a message and let me know. And as always, if you like this episode, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. But for now, I'm Carl from StreetShootr, and that's enough of me now. Get out there and take some pictures already. See you next week.